Tell me if you think that's prejudicial to the defense to not know that the surviving witness for the state is not going to be taking the stand.
It potentially is prejudicial. I mean, I would assume that they have had a doctor that says he's not able to take the stand because of the health reasons. But it is, I mean, they should be able to question him. Now, that being said, I don't know if there was a previous deposition or something of that nature that took place prior with this particular witness that maybe they can play at trial instead.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know that. It seems as though that's not where it's going, though, just from the arguments this morning from the defense. What about the defendant? Would you roll the dice and put him on the stand, even with now this knowledge that the surviving victim is not going to be appearing? You have the opportunity possibly to get one side of the story out there if your defendant can pull it off. And I don't know, you look at this guy, maybe he's not the candidate for it, but how does the strategy of putting him on the stand maybe changing with the knowledge, knowing now that the survivor is not going to testify?
Generally, it is not a good idea to put the defendant on the stand. Ultimately, it is the defendant's decision whether they're going to take the stand. And like you said, Ted, it's very, I mean, if you're going to go that route, you better have a defendant that is going to have a good appearance and come across very well before the jury. I'm not sure that this is that defendant, because it can go south really quickly when you put a defendant on the stand.
How much of a question do you think is going to be in these jurors' minds? They've heard a lot about the victim in this case. They've heard from the victim's family members, from neighbors. And I don't remember if in opening statements it was very clear that he was going to testify, but it certainly didn't seem like he was not going to testify. And you think that they have a natural desire to hear from the person that survived this horrible shooting. Now they won't hear from him. Is that going to make them think he's probably in much more poor health and perhaps help the state? Or is there going to be a question of, well, why wouldn't the victim who was, the person who was shot not going to be here inside of the courtroom to testify even remotely? I think sometimes that's an option for a witness to, even if they're in the hospital, to still testify.
I think it's going to be a big question. I agree, before the jury. Why isn't the victim testifying? What happened to the victim? And there's going to have to be some instructions if the victim does not get up, so that the jury is not inferring things that are not in evidence, that haven't been presented. Like you mentioned, is he really bad off that he cannot? His injuries were so severe that he's not able to testify. So there needs to be jury instructions about that. However, there's going to be a question. I mean, as I sit here, I have the same questions you asked. How bad is he? Why can't he testify as the jury would?